Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And we're going to talk about the utter state of graphic novels and YA publishing, and how it seems like a lot of comic book publishers now are chasing YA publishing, but it is actually a contracting market, or seems to be a contracting market.
It's been.
Yeah, for quite a few years now, and we're gonna touch on some different things, maybe our own personal experiences, our own adventures, misadventures in YA publishing.
Well, let's look at it this way: young YA, especially with graphic novels and things, especially, is the fact that they may only have so many spots open a year for these books. And they're already assigned to people that have been there for a while, whether they sell or not. We'll talk about later. I'm sure you're going to say.
Yeah, I've got some.
I'll beat you to the punch. He's going to talk about that later. So why do I even bother talking? Go ahead.
No, that's okay. I have lots of things. We have lots of things we're going to talk about.
I'm messing with his plan.
I know, right? And of course, we're going to talk about the big news that Simon & Schuster is being sold. That is one of the, well, it used to be the big six, then they're down to the big five, and now we're talking big four publishers.
Wow.
So there are fewer places to publish your YA novels and graphic novels, and that's probably going to negatively affect some of maybe DC's plans and plans of publishers like First Second, etc.
Well, here's the thing: they're all selling it. People don't sell profitable companies.
No.
So,
No.
Obviously they're losing money, or they wouldn't be, selling them off.
Right. So before we get into it, guys, please give us a sub. If you haven't done so already, we're over 150,000 of you. Thank you so much for the support. And we are having a Black Friday / Cyber Monday sale on shopclownfish.com. You can pre-order the new pin pack. Look at this. Look how cute we are. Cuter than, well, you're as cute in real life.
Oh, nice save there. Nice save.
You are adorable in real life.
I have red shoes for real, so.
Yeah, she does. And I have a big pencil for real. And we also have. I
thought you just put that out there. Anyway,
right. So everybody knows my pencil is huge. So
I haven't denied it. Anyway, continue.
Anyway, we do have a very limited supply of. I think we've only got maybe 20 of these left now. These.
Oh wow.
These original Clownfish logo pins. We've got our Festivus sweater. Of course, Fisto, the patron saint of Clownfish
Okay,
TV.
there you go. I'll take that. No, it's not the official holiday. It's the patron saint. Okay.
He's the patron saint of Clownfish TV.
We like to fist them all.
Yeah, you can.
We try. We don't always fist them all.
No, it's hard to fist them all.
Ask Fisto.
That's a lot of fisting. We've also got holiday hats and some other stuff. If you want to help the channel, this is the best way to do it. We don't have a Patreon or any of that kind of stuff, so we don't rattle the tin cup very often. We very seldom do live streams on the main channel.
We need to do that sometimes, but it's just hard to get time.
Yeah, we do. So that's the best way to support us. So yeah, there's a lot of chatter going on now about DC Comics doubling, tripling down on graphic novels, specifically YA, young adult. For those of you who don't know, it's not a dirty thing. It's young adult. And that doesn't mean, under 18.
Okay. I was like, what? Okay, go ahead.
Although some YA graphic novels are pretty spicy.
Some YA graphic novels should be not considered young adult, but that's another story entirely.
But DC is going all in. We've showed several of these books that they're coming out with.
They had the Batman one. It was like Batman the Teenage Years, where he wasn't really Batman, and now he's like an
everybody's
Asian dude and
for
everything.
Some reason.
Yes.
They had that. They had Lois Lane, where she's a middle grade journalist, and all of her friends, and they're on their bikes and doing journalism stuff. And this seems to be where DC Comics is going, that they're like, hey, we got an idea. The comic shops are closing down. The direct market's imploding. Let's do YA graphic novels 5 years too late.
You know why? Because they'll put them in the book orders. The Scholastic book orders. But I got to tell you, as someone who used to run the book fairs at the elementary schools and has filled up many a book order for my children, the graphic novels aren't a big part of the book orders. They have them in there, and they have them on the website, but it's not really a big part of what they do. They're not their best sellers. We have oftentimes graphic novels out on the shelves during book fairs, and a couple of them sell, mostly to my kids, but mostly they weren't what was selling. And that's just the way it was. And I've done many book fairs.
Yeah. Now we hear about things like Dog Man and Raina Telgemeier and stuff like that, but those are more middle grade. Yeah,
those skew younger. And they're also hybrids. There's a difference too. A hybrid book is prose and graphic novel, like the comic into one. And those ones do far better
So that'd be like Wimpy Kid and Dogman.
Right. Those are going to do far better than just flat out graphic novels.
Yeah, and I don't think Raina Telgemeier, as far as flat out graphic novels, has yet to be beaten. I don't think, at least in the States. Now, you look at all the numbers for all the graphic novels here in the States, and you go overseas, you go to Japan.
I know, it's nothing.
And it's absolutely pathetic. People are like, wow, they sold 100,000 copies of Dogman. That's great. And it's like, yeah, Demon Slayer sold that in like an hour.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's like, whatever.
To a smaller audience.
To a smaller audience,
and
too.
Scholastic, one of the reasons it can be argued that Telgemeier sells so many is because they push the hell out of her in all their flyers.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. That's marketing is a lot. And,
they used to push Amulet like crazy too.
And part of the reason that it's very hard to get a graphic novel through a mainstream publisher is because they can't have too much content because they are pushing individual authors. So less competition means more book sales. Right. So Raina Telgemeier is going to sell a lot more books because there's only one of her, and they make sure that they keep everyone else kind of
That's what I'm saying.
check.
You understand, with these publishers, we talked to somebody who worked with the Scholastic, and they worked with the graphic novel publishing over there. But they were considered like the butt end of Scholastic to begin with.
Yeah, Scholastic, for all the talk of Raina Telgemeier selling really well, we were told that Scholastic internally does not think much of graphic novels.
Right. And so they get what they don't get a whole lot anyway. Plus these publishers may only have we're going to put out 8 graphic novels this year, okay? And of the 8 graphic novels, probably 6 are already assigned to people they're in people that always get over and over. You wonder why these people get deals repeatedly? That's why. They're already in there, so they just get another book deal. Yeah. And it's the same people over and over and over again, and it's really hard to get in there. And there's people that even, don't even sell enough to earn out. And what that means is they aren't selling past the advance they got. I mean, as far as profits is concerned. So, But usually that means the books don't do that well. So you'd think they'd hire different authors. Nope. They just give them another book deal, which makes total sense.
Yeah, and I've got some information pulled up on that. And that's particularly in the YA space, that seems to be a thing. And a lot of these graphic novels aren't selling terribly well. Now, DC Comics, I mean, they, talking about their YA, they had this thing, the Wonder Woman of History, a couple months ago, where it was all political, and it all looked like
and how the hell was AOC in there? She's been around for a couple years.
Yeah. I'm like, what? Because she's the right kind of person at the right time in history. So anyway, there are going to be, we'll start with this, there are going to be significantly fewer places to sell your books, because actually what kicked this whole conversation off, and I'm going to say a friend of ours sent this video over. And this only came out a couple of weeks ago, that this author put a video out called The Decline of YA Fiction.
Now, she's a prose writer, I believe.
She is a prose writer.
Okay.
And she talks about, kind of how the YA imprints are closing.
Yep.
And that's at publishers that are still open. That there's a saturation of YA.
Oh my God, yeah. If you go into a bookstore, you can find one that's open. If you can go to a bookstore, the whole wall of YA is, and it's very samey.
Yeah.
And that's a problem we saw too, is that, you'd think they want to try new things, but they don't. They keep picking the same people. The art, especially the graphic ones, the art style all looks the same. Mm-hmm. And we got told we couldn't do it because ours didn't stand out enough. I'm like, ours looks different. Well, yours looks different compared to all these other books that all look the exact same. It looks like Tumblr. It all looks the flippin' same.
Yeah. I mean, even the stuff they're trying to do at DC, they're going for that. They're going for that Tumblr art style.
It all looks the same.
And, this looks very Tumblr too. And people were joking that Mariko
That's herself.
Tamaki basically.
I'm sorry, that's her.
Self-insert.
That's a self-insert. There's no question in my mind.
So Simon Schuster had a bunch of YA imprints, and now they're being sold to Random House, which means we've gone from 6 to 5 to 4 publishers. And they're obviously, like you said, they're not worth keeping around, or they wouldn't have sold them. CBS wouldn't have sold them, because CBS is trying to double down on streaming now too. They want to take All Access and turn it into Paramount Plus, and books are old-fashioned. Nobody gives a shit. But the entire unit, which has some of the biggest authors in the industry, is only going to sell for $1.2 to $1.5 billion.
Dang.
That's for the whole kit and caboodle. So that kind of shows where publishing kind of is right now. Now, book sales are still pretty decent, but people are buying books, through Amazon and stuff like that.
Right, lots of Kindle and things like that.
Yeah, and that's one thing that this author was talking about, was that there's, a saturation of books, but you don't have the big the debuts. She talked about the debuts and the mid-list being that you're not, Stephen King. You come out with a book and you get some attention and then it gets optioned and whatever. And that seems to be closing. It's either you're a mega author, you're James Patterson or Stephen King, or you're just one of tens of thousands of struggling authors.
And in some ways, prose is easier because they're more willing to take prose books than they are graphic novels. But in some ways, it's not. Because a graphic novel, you can go and have a platform and turn around and do it yourself on like Indiegogo or something, and you're more likely to get a lot of money for it than, say, somebody who's just doing a prose book.
Yeah.
So there's ups and downs on it.
Well, graphic novels they're more niche and they're more expensive to produce.
Obviously,
usually.
yeah.
If you're doing a full color graphic novel, that book costs way more than publishing a prose book, and the audience is smaller too. They might be more dedicated, but
so what I'm saying is there's a lot more demand for the prose books through publishers, but it's oversaturated.
Yeah. And
graphic novels are oversaturated as well. However, if you have an audience, you can spin off and do that yourself. Where prose, it's a lot harder just to do it yourself.
Yeah, for sure. There are some advantages, disadvantages, but this is where DC wants to go. And
why?
The bloodbath, because I think they're like, well, and again, this is like the mainstream comic book industry is so far behind. They're like, oh, hey, YA graphic novels. That's awesome. I'm like, yeah, it's a very 2014, 2015 mindset, DC.
Right. And in 2014, 2015, they were already starting the whole was starting to collapse on itself as we ran into, because we were out there with a YA and a middle grade, some treatments, and it's just not, it was bad then, and it's worse now. Yeah, it is worse now. So let's, because now it seems like the end game for a lot of these authors is, I'll put my book out there as a proof of concept, and then I'm hoping Hollywood will come along and make a movie or TV show based off of my book. So I will eat dirt for years, hoping there will be a payout. And then we're finding out that a lot of these people who even get shows picked up aren't making a lot of money, but... Well, I was going to say, too, before we go into that, you go to I'm at the library, right? And I'm looking at the books on the shelf, so they're the YA. And it seems that they are pushing a bunch of books that, frankly, kids are not going to read. Yeah. It seems like a certain group of people are picking the books, unless it's like a Dog Man or something like that. And these books are ones that definitely are pushing agenda, which I'm not saying there isn't a place for that, because there is. I think their representation matters. But that's what they're pushing the most. And a lot of kids are not going to effing read those books. No. I mean, frankly, just by numbers, I'm sorry if you get pissed. Mathematically speaking, the percentages just aren't there. But that's what they double down on. And I think that there definitely is a place for them. They definitely should be putting those books out for kids that, need that representation. However, that they shouldn't focus all their energy on that, because what we're seeing is all like clones of each other, the exact same thing, the exact same themes, and they aren't selling because kids already read it already. Yeah, I mean, there's only one Raina Telgemeier, and there have been other artists that try to be like Raina Telgemeier, and you might be able to, I guess, cross-promote Scholastic. They've got some other artists that look Raina Telgemeier-ish that they, it's like, oh, they all copy the style. They all look the same now. They all do the same art style. And you look at graphics when it first started, and it started with Bone, Jeff Smith's Bone, which was, it was self-published for years, and I think he went through Image. And it already had a good reputation, but it was kind of a throwback to Pogo, to like old comic strips, and it's held up. It's definitely held up, but Bone is not their bread and butter over there now. It's Raina Telgemeier books. They're basically the business of Raina Telgemeier. The thing is with the Raina Telgemeier books that people don't understand is they push the shit out of Raina Telgemeier. Yeah. Oh yeah, she's well marketed. Kids are going to buy what they're given, okay? And if they're putting her in every stinking book order, every stinking book fair, what do you think? And then, they're promoting her. And then they were using the New York Times bestseller list, which we'll talk about that later, too, right? Yeah, we can talk about that, yeah. Then that as a way to push her even forward more. But the reason Raina Telgemeier sells as much as Raina Telgemeier sells is because her deal that she worked out probably with her agent is that she gets a lot of that marketing and stuff included. Because one thing people don't realize is you might make a deal with a book publisher, but that doesn't mean that those things are included in your deal. Right. And if you are a mid-list author, you might get, let's just throw a number out there, because these numbers aren't even accurate anymore. If you're a mid-list author for a prose book, you might get maybe $10,000 advance. Let's just throw that. They used to be much higher, yeah. But they've gone down 10. They went down like 5-6 years ago. Yeah, they did. So $10,000. Say you get $10,000. You got to give your agent 15-20%. Right. If you had an agent broker the deal. So you have $8,000. So you have $8,000. And then out of that, you've got to probably take a couple $1,000s for self-promotion.
Because
now you're down to 6.
So now you're down to 6. And then you're supposed to basically live on that while you get your book done.
Right. And the books could take 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, if it's a graphic novel especially, it could take a lot of time.
The ones that get the money, for the advances, or like Rand Tegelmeyer and stuff, they get more money for their advances. But it's still not a lot of money, guys. They make it on the back end with the sales if they earn out. But the only reasons we stopped pursuing this is because you're like, oh, you might get, we might get $10,000 advance, and that's what we're supposed to be doing for 3 years to make a book. And it's like, hell no.
Yeah, and then you don't get more royalties until the book earns out. You have to pay back what they gave you in advance. So if they gave you a $10,000 advance, again, this is low. I can kind of tell you what I think the numbers are right now. They're way lower than they were before because of saturation and all of that. But if you get a $10,000 advance, until your book makes you $10,000 in royalties, you don't get a penny more. And a lot of graphic novelists, especially, that's all they get. They get their advance and that's it because the books never earn out.
Right. And I'm going to say something. I mean, Faith Erin Hicks is listed here. She's one of the ones who was saying, haha, my book didn't earn out last time, but I got another book deal. I mean, nothing against Faith Erin Hicks, but I'm just saying, if her books aren't earning out and they aren't earning the money like they should be earning, why is she getting more book deals over other people who should get a chance to have a voice?
Yeah. And that's look,
it's not an insult. That's nothing against her. I'm just saying in general.
I think Faith Erin Hicks is pretty talented. I want to be very clear about that. She's also, I will give her props for being incredibly transparent about the business side of making graphic novels. She's one of the only ones out there, probably because she doesn't have one of the agents that will freaking gag you, but she will talk numbers and she will be very blunt and she will tell you she has basically made a career off of advances, as long as she's been doing graphic novels. And her advances are not great. And she said she hasn't earned out on most of her books.
And the one thing that I do like about her, too, is the fact that she's, people take it as, oh, you're discouraging me. You're making me feel bad. No, she's trying to tell you the truth of the situation so that you know full well going into it what to expect. And that's what we try to do. People get mad and think we're trying to be like, we're just trying to, pee on your parade and everything else. But we're not. It's just, we're trying to tell you it's possible. It can be done. But you have to understand going in, you're going to need a job on top of this to make it work because you're not going to make much money.
Yeah, and that's hard. She's got her blog post out there. I can put a link to that probably where she does talk the finances on this, but it's pretty bad. I mean, as of a couple of years ago, now I don't know if her situation's changed because I think she has an animated series or a pitch or something that got picked up. And even then, you don't make a lot of money off of that. You don't make money on the show. You make money on the merchandise, the tie-ins. A lot of times they will pay you a salary. You get a gig, work it, just hypothetically speaking, let's say you get picked up at Cartoon Network. Well, one, they own your stuff.
Right. If you're gone, they can reboot it without you.
They completely own your stuff. And they put you on salary. And then when you're done, you're done. The only way you make really good money is if you're had the foresight like Matt Groening or I think even Alex Hirsch to make sure that you got a cut of the merchandise sales. But then you have to create a show that is merchandisable. Right. And some people are just averse to money. They're like, I don't want to sell out. It's like, well, then your kids aren't going to eat.
Well, again, I want to take a moment to point out that if you want to go into this kind of thing, if you want to go into comics, you want to go into publishing, you want to go into doing books, take a business class. Yeah. And I'm 100% serious. They don't promote this enough. I think you definitely need, one, you need a business class to know that you're not getting screwed. You need a lawyer to look over all your contracts, especially one that's versed in entertainment, so they know that you're not getting everything taken from you. Make sure you pay for those two things because you really should do them. And I'm just, you don't have to listen to me if you don't want to, but if you want to actually not get your, get taken, to the cleaners, I recommend both of those things.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the most successful artists, honestly, current year are the ones who have business sense. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have it, you're going to get screwed. But the point of this is to show you that YA was already kind of dicey to begin with.
I mean, I'm surprised everybody's acting like this is news. I'm like, it's been this way for years. I mean, and water's wet. I don't...
Yeah, so now we're looking at potentially fewer places to sell books, and the vast majority of cartoonists, I mean, they keep using buzzwords, middle grade graphic novel, because Raina Telgemeier did it. Well, there's one Raina Telgemeier, there's one Michael Jordan, there's one, and she started back in the early 2000s.
Right, and then if it's going to be, you're going to be in competition with her, do you think they're going to put you in there too?
No, it's actually gatekept. The publishing industry is incredibly gatekept, graphic novels. That's why, a lot of times they won't even consider looking at your stuff unless you have an agent. These agents all know each other.
However, we got through with that one once. But that's a long story. Anyway.
That was a long story. But, they kind of lock everything down because, these publishers, old school publishers like this, they plan their books out years in advance.
It takes years for them to come out, guys.
Yeah, like they might buy a book in 2020 and that book won't even hit the market until 2023, 2024. And that entire time they're buying other books for years ahead of time. It's a very clunky way to do things. This is why mainstream publishing, I think, is kind of, petering out because it's not something you can turn on a dime. Once the wheels are in motion, it's like it can take years for the stuff to happen and people want like instant. Meanwhile, you can go to like crowdfunding and throw up a campaign for a book and have the book out in 6 months or whatever.
Right.
But you're not going to probably get that book into Walmart or get that book into...
Oh, you could if you know what you're doing.
If you know what you're doing. Right. Well, okay, so there's a story with, this whole... middle grade YA things. Actually, Raina Telgemeier's agent.
Yeah, this is actually true.
We talked to her multiple times.
The one that bullied us and tried to talk to you for 2 hours and tell you how you sucked about everything to try, and that was mad when we went with a different agent because she said she wasn't interested.
That one. She was interested. She just wanted to make sure we knew her place. Anyway.
Well, rule number one when it comes to Clownfish TV, we don't know our place.
We don't know our place.
Our place is where we tell you it is.
That's where your faces belong.
That's right.
So anyway, the other story was there was another person she had that went through and they actually, I guess, got their own book into book orders on their own, and then she picked them up after they saw the momentum.
That happens a lot with agents.
Because it wasn't your bank.
Okay, even our agent we had, which wasn't this person, it was somebody else.
Yeah.
But the person represents a lot of people that are at the center of all the bullshit. It took us already having meetings at first second on our own. We had meetings at first second about our middle grade pitch to get their attention that we already had. And there was a bunch of libraries that were already interested because we were at the one book show.
Yeah, they want a sure thing, or what they think is a sure thing. So why I think they pick wrong, or they have been picking wrong, is they're going out to social media and they're like, well, this person's got a whole bunch of Twitter followers.
That doesn't equate to sales.
That doesn't mean you're going to sell books. I mean, personally, I'd be like, okay, how many books have you sold?
Well, I'd be like, wait, if your claim to fame is how many followers you have on Twitter, I mean, one, people, they don't seem to buy shit over there. It was like Tumblr before Twitter. It was like, how many Tumblr followers do you have? And I'm like, well, if you go by Tumblr and Twitter followers as your reason as to why you have a big audience to buy books, I would disregard that because that doesn't mean it's going to sell.
They don't buy shit. And you can have a webcomic. We talked about this in another video. Go out and check out the webcomic video we did, where you can have a massive webcomic following and you have a bunch of people who expect free stuff. They're not going to buy your books. That's not the audience. So what's going on now is they're creating books, for moms and dads who buy books out of book orders, for teachers, for librarians. Basically, the entire YA graphic novel scene exists for librarians.
Basically, and these are the same librarians that every time somebody does, one of these books that are like breaking boundaries, we'll say, and then it's all over the library journals about how, amazing it was and how critically acclaimed it is. And they just see that and they buy it because they think, oh, okay, well, it's critically acclaimed. But then the book doesn't sell worth shit or no one checks out the library because the critical acclaim doesn't always equate to actual people reading it. I mean, frankly, if something's listed as critics love it, I usually know I'm probably not going to like it.
Yeah, and this is like, look, this is what DC is doing, because this stuff looks like edutainment. And this is, librarians will eat this shit up. Like, actual comic book readers will look at this like, what the hell is DC thinking? Librarians are like, oh my god, this is the best thing ever. Let's order a whole bunch of copies. Whole bunch of copies of this AOC educational edutainment comic from DC. So that's this whole YA push by DC is like a Hail Mary pass. Like, they know they're on borrowed time. They've already gutted most of the company and they're like, well, what else could we try? Let's try selling some YA books, except oopsie doopsie, YA fiction is declining.
Right.
So I would say your best bet, going back to the finances as an indie creator, is just go do crowdfunding or sell your own stuff, because she said her best year, now this was a couple of years ago, but she said her best year was $30,000. That was her best year ever.
I mean, you could literally can go work a job somewhere and make more money than that.
Go work at
And
Lowe's.
I got to tell you, there are a lot of people who have book deals in play, and they have full-time jobs because they don't quit their jobs to go do this. Well, I can't tell people are like, I'm going to go quit my job because it's retail and I hate it to go clear to California because I'm going to go be a storyboard artist. You can't swing a dead cat without hitting a storyboard artist. In LA. They're everywhere. Everybody and their brother. I went to school and I'm a storyboard artist. I mean, that's just the way it is. And, so you have a lot of competition, people who know people when they're over there and who already have ins. And then they're up and quitting and just running over there to go do this. And then they get over there and they realize, oh, shit, I can't find a job and I'm back at working retail. But now I'm way far away from home and I hate it. Where, just have a job and then you do your job. And then if you get picked up or you get your comic on the side, it does well, then you're good. And if you get to a place where you can actually quit your job, then quit your job.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard stories. There was one actually on Comics Beat a couple of years ago where there was a graphic novelist. She was published. She was actually selling pretty well. And she's like, yeah, I make about $10,000 a year and I had to quit. Because mainstream publishing too, you got to realize like you could sell your books, but you might only be getting like $1 a book.
Right. And then you see these people that are like, oh, I'm doing it full time. But that might not be the whole story. And we mentioned this before. You see somebody that's saying, I'm doing comics full time. But what you don't know is I'm married to a doctor or I'm married to a teacher or a lawyer or a nurse or something like that. And it's those people who are bringing in the money to pay the bills. Yes, they're full time, but they're making $10,000 a year. And they couldn't live on that had they not have a spouse who's supportive and who is actually paying for everything. We saw that with the one chick, who I'm not going to name names, but she was in the Whisper Network, and we were at a convention with her where she literally stood up and talked about how to flirt with the editors to get herself book deals, but now she's reading about men and being toxic when she was using it to her advantage. Her husband had a very, very, very good job in a medical profession. So she was paid for, everything was paid for. Another person we know of goes around talking about how to be poor and how to survive in cities being poor. And her husband was a flipping investment banker.
Yeah, I know, right?
I love that. And they I'm not going to name names, but they laud her, they worship her, they talk about what amazing, example she is. They're not mentioning the fact that her husband was an investment banker when she was, starting out.
Yeah, this is, look, that could be a whole nother video at some point too. The entire comic book industry is a sham, at least the indie comic scene, because you look at it and you're going to find out there's so many people working in comics that are not actually, you're not seeing like a normal nuclear family making a decent living for the most part. You're seeing people that are, married to somebody or living with somebody who's bankrolling their lifestyle. They're single
and they have 20 roommates.
Right.
Just to stay afloat. And that's why these people are the ones yelling for, you see them all the time going about how they want universal health care and stuff. I'm an artist and I make books and I should be able to have health care. Oh, there it is. This is why you see it, because they're not making any flipping money. And they think they should be given because they're working they might work really hard, but they're not making any money at it. And instead of thinking, well, shit, maybe I should go get a job on top of this or do something else, their answer is, no, I should be kept so I can keep doing what I want to do.
Yeah, this is a really good article. This is coming from Augie DeBleek, who worked for, he was a journalist for multiple comic book sites. Very smart guy. And he's talking about, healthcare and all of that, and why doing comics for a living, as much as he loves comics, is a terrible way to make a living.
It is.
And he talks about like, hey, the healthcare is an issue. You need, if you're self-employed, you've got to buy your own healthcare. And most comic book artists are self-employed.
And not just that, he's talking about the gig economy. It's not just artists. The gig economy is a big thing now because people, these companies basically don't want to pay people. And they've switched to this gig economy idea. And it's not just in art. There's so many things. You used to work in marketing and it was gig economy. It's in certain places and things, in design.
Yeah. So, with marketing, especially because of, sites like Fiverr and stuff like that, it's become rarer that marketing departments have a whole bunch of artists on staff or graphic artists or copywriters or whatever. What usually happens is you've got a couple people running the marketing department and then they just go job out this stuff.
Right. They have their chosen people they work with and that's what they do. And it's a gig. So it's not just comic people. But yes, comics is a shitty job to get into. I'm just going to tell you flat out. Now, that being said, if it's something you really want to do, you most certainly can. And by all means, you can make it go. Just understand going into it what the problems are so that you can make sure that you have a plan to work around them.
Now, this is everything we're talking about right here. And I hadn't even read this part yet, coming from Augie DeBleek. talking about career suicide part 2. What's the end game with being a comic book artist? You work until the day you die. If you're lucky, if not, you're hoping for help from actor, which is they give out money to retired comic book professionals.
How many times have we seen these campaigns for so-and-so used to do comics, but they don't want to go get another job.
And they can't pay their rent.
And they're going to lose their house. And the answer is, okay, we'll go do something else. If you can't get jobs in that field anymore, like any other field, I can't get a job in this field anymore. I'm just going to switch to something else. Is what normal people do.
Right. But this is everything we've been saying. So kudos to Augie for pointing this out.
I'm not sure I'm not surprised he said it either. I mean, he would. This, of course, is something he would say.
There are certain ways to make it better about getting on a treadmill of this, monthly comic.
Know what you're getting into.
Yep. I think there are some artists who are beginning to realize they're actually entrepreneurs and are running their creative life more like a business.
You need to.
Yep. In the long run, those people stand a chance. It involves creator ownership and building a library and being your own best marketer and several other things. A spouse with a corporate job is always valuable, but it's doable.
Tell you how many people out there, especially in webcomics, everybody's like worshiping them. They do webcomics full time. My wife's a nurse. Well, that's why.
Yeah.
Come on.
He also says there are no excuses. Like, it's common knowledge how little these publishers pay. Now, we saw this with Boom when they had their Kickstarter, Keanu Reeves Kickstarter, and it made millions of dollars because it's a Keanu Reeves Kickstarter. We had all these Boom freelancers coming out of the woodwork and being like, well, I did work for Boom 3 years ago, and I only got paid $50 a page. Where's my money?
You agreed to taking $50 a page. And understand, too, if you take a little bit of money for these jobs, it does not mean that you're eventually going to earn more. Sometimes you do. Sometimes you work up and you get to be a top tier creator, but even then they don't make like they used to at all. But, you understand that might be all you ever get. You might be set at that level and that's all you're ever going to get because that's the nature of the industry. Is it right? No. Is it, is it wrong? I don't know. It depends who you ask. But that's what the reality of the situation is. If ifs and buts were candies and nuts, we'd all have a wonderful Christmas. But the reality of the situation is this.
Everybody wants nuts for Christmas.
Butts, apparently.
Nuts and butts.
Ifs and buts were candies and nuts.
Yeah, but this is it. This is what it is. So, again, I'm just sort of left scratching my head as to why, when this market is sort of declining right now, that this is where DC seems to be headed. And I think it's...
God, I can't get past that.
I think it's just because they don't know what else to do.
That is definitely herself. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, wait, that's Starfire's gay goth daughter.
Yes.
Is she a lesbian?
Yes.
It has the same haircut and everything.
Yes.
I'm like, are you serious? And she's trying to say it's not her?
She didn't say anything. Just
come on. This is like She-Ra. It was basically all Noelle Stevenson's OC inserts. I mean, this is all they want to do. I'm taking a little side tour for a minute. It's like when you do books that have established characters, they're established because they've been around for decades. They have a certain way the character acts, a certain way the character behaves. And it was understood for years that if you were a writer on these projects, you were hired to caretake the property and to write the character as the character. Then speed up to current times in the last 10 years. Now it's all these people who want to get themselves in there so they can change everything about it and make it, and they're no longer a caretaker. They're the, assimilator, and they go in and change everything about it to make them their own OCs. And now, call me crazy, but it takes a hell of a lot more talent as a writer to write a character that somebody else created and keep the character on character than it is to just take the character and make the character yourself.
Yeah.
And it's like this, and then they wonder why did books sell until now? I wonder.
I think, and I've said this before, I think when the money started leaving the comic book industry, you can always trace it back to the lack of money, because people who are good at making money, they go work in industries that pay them well. So we had a lot of people, especially in comics, writing, they went to Hollywood, they went into video games, they went and started a marketing firm, something. They did something else. Because comics is a very, very low-paying field for most people.
Well, one chick went and did a computer business.
Yeah, she was actually, and I forget her name off the top of my head, but I do remember that. I think it was Rachel something or other, but she had a successful webcomic. She won awards. She was actually barely eking by, but
awards don't pay your bills.
No, well, she needed surgery. And she didn't have the health insurance to cover the surgery, so she had to go get a job. And she wound up working in IT, making a lot of money. And now she's like a consultant. She's making a healthy 6-figure salary. And she's like, I'm going to tell you right now, I love comics, but my God, do not do comics for a living. don't do comics for a living.
Or at least make sure you do something else to pay your bills and do comics as a hobby until you get to a place where you can do comics as a living. I can't stress this enough.
Yeah, because it's not
same with
good.
graphic novels. Same with graphic novels. Don't quit your day job to pursue a graphic novel deal. Just don't do it because you're not going to make the money. Keep your job and then pursue it that way. Yeah, because I do not quit your job for this.
Yeah.
And then another thing we're going to talk about real quick, but it has nothing to do with this, but you put it up, was the Jane Austen thing.
Oh, yeah. I figure since we're talking about books, why not?
Okay. So this is unrelated, but, I don't think it deserves a whole video. If it was me, it would get a whole video. But, so the CW, speaking of books, okay, so you have these books and they're not selling, but there's some classics that always are relevant. Like Jane Austen novels, especially Pride and Prejudice and Emma. Always relevant, always. People love them. So the CW, in their, wisdom in quotes, decided that they're going to adapt these to shows that are going to be sexier. So they're going to take 6 of Jane Austen's novels and they're going to make effing trash shows in the CW about them.
It's the same. Like, I think the CW is basically the television version of the YA novel scene. Like, it's all like tarted up, sexed up, oversexed.
Well, they're going to change gender swap.
Yeah.
They're going to race bend. They're going to, make characters, different sexualities now. It's like she's going to be, Elizabeth's going to be, does this dress look good? And Mr. Darcy's going to be, it will when it fits a man, or something.
Well, here we go. Each season will solely focus on one novel, with the first plan as being Pride and Prejudice set in San Francisco. Mr. Darcy is Slack's chief. Oh, wait, no, they're joking. Where presumably Mr. Darcy is Slack's chief product officer.
But it's stupid. It's dumb. Why do you have to keep changes? Plus, it's already been done. They already redid these. I mean, they've redone Jane Austen novels a couple times. We have Clueless, which is Emma, and stuff. Bridget Jones's Diary is basically Pride and Prejudice. Heck, the character's name is Darcy in the movie, Mark Darcy. But it's the thing. It's like it's already been done. Just stop. Just stop.
Stop it. Stop it. They don't have to pay royalties.
Especially not the CW. Because look what they did to flipping Nancy Drew. You know what they're going to do to this. You know where it's going to go.
Nancy Drew, they made her, like, really...
Well, she was kind of slutty. But anyway.
Loose Nancy Drew. Yeah. So, I don't know, but it's the same mindset. Like, this is the same audience. Like, the CW shows and the YA graphic novel market all kind of is on the Venn diagram of, like, reboots for a certain audience that usually miss the mark.
Right.
Yeah.
If you like the books, go watch the movies that are made to be based on the books. Don't go watch whatever shit the CW is going to crap out because it's going to suck.
Yeah.
It's a CW. It's all you need to know right there. When you say they're going to Riverdale Jane Austen. That's what you said. They're going to Riverdale Jane Austen.
Yeah, they're going to Riverdale. Yeah, and we saw what happened to poor Archie. Archie's nailing his teacher. It's like, no, don't. Stop it. Stop. Just stop it.
Just stop.
Well, at least Jughead did an American Pie, a hamburger. That would have been horrifying.
Oh my God, do not give them ideas. Do not give them ideas. They're going to do that now. No.
He said he's asexual. It should be like, I'm burger sexual. I'm beef sexual, okay?
Okay,
I love hamburgers.
Just stop.
Num, num, num.
Just stop.
All right, we're going to wrap it up.
Yes.
Okay, so please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. I just thought this was really interesting because we do have familiarity with this market, and we're seeing it contract, and what the hell DC Comics is thinking. I don't know. It's Hail Mary pass. Hail Mary pass.
I don't even know.
And don't sleep with hamburgers.
Yeah. Meanwhile, our manga's just going to keep kicking our ass.
Yeah,
so,
manga's going to kill it all anyway, so whatever. See you later.
Bye.